Welcome to True Print for Life. I'm your host, Christina Vera.
And I'm your co-host, Maylin Some Boys.
Welcome back for another episode. As we were kind of thinking about just, as we all know, we're all busy. We have a million things happening all the time, I feel like. And I think nothing pains me more than when I feel like someone does not respect my time.
Or wastes your time.
Absolutely. Waste my time. And so I think it's like, I don't know if I'm just like in this season of my life. Actually, I kind of feel like I've always been like this.
She has been.
Yeah. I feel like I've always just kind of been really, because I feel like if somebody takes the time to like meet me or ask me to do something, I'm definitely going to be on it, just because I know how it feels to feel like, oh, dang, you didn't take any of my time in consideration. So for me, like, time management is critically important. But I think especially in business now, it's just like now as we continue to evolve and grow, more and more people have questions and they want to know like how and what can I do, which I know you and I are pretty like open about that. Like, This is what we did. But then to feel like...
And we're very different. Too.
Yeah. Right.
I'll tell you later what her request for 2024 for me was. I'll share that later.
What? My request?
For me. Maylin, it's 2024. Can we make it being on time a priority?
Oh.
You remember
how's that going with you? How's that?
I don't know. I
was here. You were late to church, though.
Okay, but so let's talk about being late. I feel like as we're getting into this topic, I think it's important to have clarity on what certain words and perspectives and meanings are, right? Because for you, late is I miss worship. Almost. I came into the end of it. I was singing with you. So for you being late to church, our church starts at 12 o'clock. That's when they open the thingy and people start singing the worship, right?
What time do you think you got there?
12:15.
So you were late for church.
No, because actually I was at 12:07 in traffic getting into church.
But see, I couldn't relax and be in church because the whole time I'm like, I got to look for her. Because you know how our church is real chaotic. And there's so many people. So it's like, I wanted to be in worship, but then part of me is like, I got to watch the door because she's going to come in and look around and not see me. And they're going to usher her into a whole different direction. So it's like, I would start to praise and I'm like, oh shoot, let me look at my phone. And then finally I saw you. And I'm like, thank God. So now we can
worship together.
We can worship together at this point. But
so this is what happened, guys. Let's just clear this air real quick, and then we'll continue with our topic. So this is part of the topic. I live 10 minutes from church. In my mind, I thought it was 5. So while I was like getting ready, I did a real good thing about leaving my house a little bit on time, and then I hit traffic. I have not hit traffic because I'm never always there at 12. So I come in right as pastor is about to start his sermon because that's so important to me. Okay, first of all, I think worship is important. But I wake up worshiping, guys. I have a playlist, right?
Yeah.
And that's all I do. Not perception. Okay, Christina. I said, Christina, you're going to go to church for real this time? Yes. Okay, great. So I'm going to see you there. I think what we miscommunication was when I didn't check what time you were leaving the house to make sure that I was there at the same time you expected me to be there, right? So when I got there, I said a couple of things went wrong. Number 1, I don't live 5 minutes from church. I live 10 minutes from church. Number 2, a lot of people today wanted to come to church. Maybe they feel the word. I don't know. But all of these people were never usually in line with me to go to church. And I was there earlier than I ever been in a long time at church. So there's a couple things that kind of came, right?
Right.
So now that we know what the expectations, so setting expectations, that's number 1, either in a friendship or business. Setting expectations is important so nobody gets hurt. I'm coming to church. When she tells me she was at church and I was in my kitchen, I said, oh, she meant she was going to get there at 12.
When it starts.
Yeah, and I thought I'll get there and make sure I don't miss the pastors.
I didn't realize we was going to half of the church. I didn't know that was the plan. You never said like, let's just skip the whole beginning and get there in the middle. You didn't say that. So that's my fault for not clarifying.
I feel like,
what time we was going to church.
We should like blame each other.
Yeah.
I feel like we should do is just, but it's clear because this happens in life.
It happens all the time.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, okay. I feel like she's throwing shade. Listen, the sermon was really good on Sunday. You should listen to it.
Yeah,
because it was so powerful. I have shared with like 4 people. But so for me, that was a takeaway, right? Like, I was going to be on time, but I wasn't. And to my standards, not even defense, because it doesn't clear your situation, but in my perspective, I was getting there on time. I was getting there before the pastor got on stage, which usually that's not what is happening.
I love that for
And
you.
I was like, Maylin, don't miss it. Like, this is important. You gotta be there with Christina. Now, I didn't think about the things you just said, right? So sometimes, but we are in our own timeline, and we are, there's a lot of Dominicans like this, and we're doing our own thing. We don't take into consideration that somebody else is looking out for us. They are waiting for us. They're missing their moment because they're worried about us, right? So my apologies for that.
It's okay. I'm used to the word. Is she looking at the door? But it's
and I wasn't even worried because I said I would just say Christina.
Like, if you know Maylin, she walked in so happy.
I did.
She had her coffee in her hand. She's just smiling, walking in. I'm looking at her like, can you get over here before somebody sits in this seat? Because I'm always that person at events and stuff. If I'm holding a seat for somebody, I have anxiety the whole time because if somebody walks up and they're like, can I sit here? And I'm like, no, this seat is taken. And then part of them are like, are you lying? You just don't want nobody to sit next to you. And then like, you're late. So the whole time they're looking and they're like, that seat's still empty. And I'm like, because she's still on her way. So I don't want to be the seat holder. It just stresses me too much to watch for the person. And then people looking at me like, why you got this seat and nobody's in it? And I'm just
I don't like to lie. So if I told you somebody's coming, if they never show up, that's on them.
Yeah, no,
right?
that's true. But it's very stressful.
She'd be stressing. But I'd be like, I walked in, I said, if I don't see her, I'm just going to make an announcement. Like, can you get me Christina, right? So guys, I don't stress like that because I knew that at any moment I was going to sit in the middle of the church and be like, somebody coming to get me to put me next to Christina. Nobody's enjoying this church today.
So funny.
But it was a beautiful message.
Oh, it was good. Very good.
And I am glad I made it because I was intentional about going and, and without everything, whatever. But I really was grateful because I felt the need that I had to be there. And there's certain Sundays and you're like, I'm just going to watch it from home. And I had to keep telling myself, it was a mantra. I was like, watching in person is more powerful than watching online.
Yeah.
And it's true because for the first time also, in a long time, I was able to watch and I was so present because I didn't look at my phone, which is crazy, right? Like I put my phones on silent. And I remember when they were like finishing, I was like, is it time already? Like it was so amazing how the time went so fast, but because
you missed half of it.
Guys, she just didn't let me have a moment. I don't understand.
So bad. She missed the first 20 minutes.
It was 45. Okay, first of all, our church is really great because it's very respectful of people's time.
They are. They're really on it.
They have 1 hour. So when the pastor wants to go further, this have that little music, you know what's up, okay?
Right, that piano start to play. He's like, you better
wrap it up. It's like Dalton with his hands like, hey, you got 5 minutes, right?
When that piano starts, you better get to the point.
You got 5 minutes to wrap it up, right? And other churches, you there for the whole day.
Right.
I don't like that, and I respect everybody that likes, but I make appointments right after church, so I know when I went to visit one day, and I said, it's been 2 hours. When do we get released?
No, for real.
They're like, yeah, I don't know. I said, well, I'm hungry, and I had an appointment an hour ago, so I'm not concerned. I now feel bad not leaving church in the middle of the sermon.
Right.
So so I like my church. One church, kudos to you guys. You're amazing. I love it, and I'm gonna do my best to not miss worship again. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. No, I love that. And to your point, the message was really good. I took a photo of the blackboard because I was trying to explain to my sister what the message was, and I was doing a bad job. So I told her just to watch the video because she was like, "Well, what's it about?" And I was like,
"Let's try to explain it out to the people."
It was hard because the whole premise of it was like with wrong. So he wrote on the top with wrongdoing, right? Like the whole, this back and forth people have, like, oh, you can't judge others or don't judge others.
Don't keep record.
Yeah, don't keep record. But what he was explaining that, it's not necessarily don't judge others, but you have to look inside yourself before you can pass judgment on other people. And it's not like that judgment that's it's not intended. Yeah, it's not it shouldn't be like a judgment of like condemning someone, like being able to go into each encounter really evaluating like how this affected you or others. And then he broke down 3 separate ways to evaluate essentially what you said. Or handle, right? Mm-hmm. And he was talking about like just these 3 different options. And he's like, the first option is the person could ignore what you're saying or basically, just basically don't want to talk about it.
You ignore. So the first one
Yeah.
is you ignore what the person's doing because you don't want to ruffle feathers. So
yeah.
you're like, okay, I know you out there acting a fool, and you're about to go into the destination of death, but I'm not gonna say nothing because it's not my place, and I'm not supposed to judge. I'm just gonna let you do you and go wreck.
Yeah.
Like that's the first one.
Right. And he said when you ignore behaviors that are either just, triggering for you or possibly triggering or impacting others, that actually spreads. And it spreads in multiple ways, whether it be relationships or just behaviors. And then he talked about, he said that it can lead to death, and not like a physical death, but just more of a like emotional death, which then you can become stagnant in a place of regret. Like, I should have said something, I could have done something before that person or that situation got out of hand. So choosing to ignore is still a choice. And so it was just like, okay, that's interesting, because how many times do we see a situation or we hear something and we're like, I don't want to get involved, or it's not my business, or, there's just like, oh, I just won't talk to that person anymore. And then it's like you just kind of move on, which, that could still be the ultimate like conclusion of a relationship. But ultimately, like, not saying something is still like being a part of the problem.
Yeah, like I keep thinking about, I almost choose the 3 examples into relationship and parenthood, right? So like the first one is you see your kid starting to, get mouthy or start hanging out with the wrong crowd, start doing drugs and all of these things that you're watching them take certain steps that you have seen others take that lead to jail. They lead to, being an addict, right? But you're like, no, I want to be cool. I want to be the cool parent. Like, I just want to be the really cool parent that don't say nothing. This is a phase. They're going to get through it. And a lot of people get through it and it's cool. But then there's some kids that their brain is not equipped to just handle it, right? So maybe they smoke a couple times. So to some kids never do nothing. For some kids, it messes them up forever. They no longer have brain power. They don't have brain cells. But you could have stopped it, right? You could have said, hey, I'm noticing this. This worries me about you. What support can I give you? What do you need, right? But we chose to ignore it because it's denial, right? We're like, there's no way that my child is doing this nonsense. There's no way. Like, you just ignore it. Or it's not your kid and you're like, it's not my problem. Their parents should handle it, right? But if you know the kid and you're close to the kid or the person, right? I'm just using this as an example. You should say something. Now, what they do with that information is up to them.
Yeah.
Because when they end up in jail, when they end up, dead, God forbid, or in a really bad situation, you have the regret, which is, I wish I had said something.
Yeah.
I wish I had given them a resource. I wish I had, stopped to care, I wish I had. And that wish I had is what regret is.
Yeah. And he talked about, like 2 other options which tie into that.
I like those better.
Yeah. He was saying that option 2 is, being able to have being intentional about having a conversation with whoever it might be, or whatever the situation might whatever the situation might call for. He said with option 2, having that conversation allows for, whomever to take responsibility, to take onus of the fact that, okay, I didn't realize what I said to you was hurtful. I apologize. So now you are able to have the conversation. You're able to take responsibility. You're able to repent. Like, I'm sorry. Like, that's not how I meant it. But obviously that's how you took it. So that requires, some kind of forgiveness. And then he talked about having grace, like being able to show grace to others and give grace, which ultimately leads into forgiveness, which leads into restoration. So being able to take responsibility, acknowledge what you did. So just being able to have conversation with folks with the idea of getting to like the restoration piece, like being at peace with whatever the person did to harm you or whatever you may have done to harm someone else, whether it was intentionally or unintentionally. Like, in the best case scenario, that's how it should work. And then the last
Wait,
option.
don't go to the last.
Okay.
Hold on, before we go to the last.
Yeah.
And I think you have to think about there's exceptions to the rule, guys, right? So when we're saying these things, this is our takeaway from the sermon.
Right, you gotta go back and watch it because I'm not a pastor.
No, she's doing a great job, okay? You're doing a great job.
like,
So, Nikki, listen to this one.
I couldn't explain it yesterday. I was like,
because you were still processing it.
Because it made me think about my dad, because she was talking about daddy, and that's how it all came. And I was like, you gotta listen to the pastor because I feel like option 3 was daddy. And she was like, option 3. I was like, never mind, just watch it and then tell me what you think. And that was how it happened.
Yes, no, because you're still processing it, right? But I think we're gonna put the link to remind us, Dalton, because I think people should watch the sermon. But option 2, there's a couple points that I took away. One is you want to have a conversation with the person privately.
Right, don't put them on
So
blast.
if they and some people, and I'm one of them, I'm praying, I'm giving grace to myself, guys. But if you do something in public, you may get checked in public, and I think I am trying my best, Lord, to start the private check, right? Because that's what he said. He used the word check, right?
Right.
Now, Alicia Keys said something the other day that I watched on a reel real quick. That she said she was at an event somewhere and somebody said something to her, and like she said it felt like a punch in her stomach. Like she's like, it hit me. Like it was like, and I was like, ooh. She said at that moment I couldn't address it. So I took that, I continue, I carry on, and then later on I reached out to that person and I said, hey, I want to talk to you real quick. When you said this, it made me feel like this.
Yeah.
And I just want to know what you meant by it, because it said, it didn't sit right in my stomach, which is really like our gut feeling, guys. When we hear stomach, is your gut feeling, is your vibration inside. And she said, we can avoid so much issues if we just talk to the person and don't assume what they meant. Don't think they came after us. And maybe they did, and they'll tell you. Now they have an opportunity to tell you.
Right.
Or they may not have meant it that way. So when she said that, literally when he said that, that's the example that came to my mind, because I had just seen Alicia Keys' example a couple days before. And so addressing it privately and ensuring that you allow the person the grace. I think that is so important. And again, the examples though, because some people are like, well, what happened to me is so deep and it's so horrible, I would never. And guys, we're not here to tell you like why you should forgive and whatnot. I think that is a relationship between you and God. I think that is a point 2 in the sermon that you should listen to, because there are certain things that you probably in your heart right now cannot forgive.
Yeah. And remember he talked about that too. He was like, from a relationship standpoint, he was
cheating.
Yeah. He was talking about like, if you've unfortunately dealt with an infidelity, he was like, you can't take somebody back and still, if they've shown, if you've had conversation, they've taken responsibility, they've repented, they've asked for grace and forgiveness, and they're trying to move the relationship forward. You can't say, yes, I'm willing to do that, and then every other day you're back to throwing the particular situation in their face. Like it's a two-way street, even though you are not the person who caused the harm, but now you are causing harm in this situation because you're not allowing the other person the opportunity to, to also show grace and to also show restoration
And move on.
So it's like, when he said that, he was like, now if they've cheated on you a few times,
3 times.
He says that 3 times. And he was like, so that's something that you got to dig deep and you got to say, listen, am I really willing to, and if you can't, and if you truly say at the end of the day, I'm never going to be able to move past this, and anytime I see you, I'm going to think of this infidelity, or I'm going to think of this, like this, just whatever whatever the wrongdoing is. Sometimes it's infidelity. Sometimes it's prioritizing other things, other people. It could be money related. It could be anything that's caused you some kind of pain. If you don't really feel like you can move forward, then why hang on and cause he mentioned the word toxicity, and he said, so that's a big part of it, like really sitting with yourself and saying like, can I really move on? And if you can't, then do it. Ain't no sense of staying in that, just in that dark place of being like, oh, he did this. And I think it's so weird because I've been cheated on in the past. Like I've dated several men in years, like a long time ago, where they have had, infidelities. And, most of the time, the first couple of times, because I think like it's only really been 2 that really stand out to me in years past that were really just out here.
You really was forgiven.
Yeah, and that was in my earlier years, like late teens, early 20s. And I remember one day I just was like, I can't live my life like this. And it's not that they weren't great people and that they weren't really trying everything to restore the relationship, but I just knew like I wasn't going to be able to move forward with them. And so, just thinking back, it's like, yeah, you want to give people grace and you want to give people the benefit of a doubt. But at the end of the day, I know that I couldn't be like who God had me to be, always looking over my shoulder, like, oh, is he really at work? Is he really is he really here? And not that, even being married, I'll be married 10 years in March.
Yay.
And yeah, it's so crazy. I can't believe I made it 10 years, guys. Which
so happy.
So happy, right? But not every day is happy, right? Not every day is like perfect. And we've had our definitely share of
up and downs,
but every time I got to a point of just saying to myself, it's like, am I willing to still put in everything I can to save this marriage or to keep this marriage moving in productive, just in a good place? It's not always perfect and it's not always this blissful. And I think that's why people struggle so much now with marriage. It's just because marriage is so much work and it's not always every day that we're in love, and every day I'm like, oh, I'm just like, some days it's like, hey, what's up? Like, we got to pay these bills. We got to get these kids. It's a partnership, and not every day is going to be, but I know at the end of the day that the things we've gone through, at some point I was like, am I going to hang on to that? Or is he going to hang on to that? Because if he is, then let me go. And if I am, then I need to let him go. And so now just seeing like those relationships where I knew I couldn't let it go, I'm like, nah, this can't be my life. Whereas in this situation, I was able to say, okay, you messed up. I get it. I'm not happy about it. I'm going to still talk about it for about 6 months.
At
least 6 months.
Not after the sermon, church.
But then eventually I had to say to myself, like, I'm going to drive myself crazy. And at the end of the day, your own mental health is also kind of wrapped up into that. It's like, we are trying so hard to punish others for what they did to us. But they're for the most part, they might feel some pain and they might feel some, but half the time they don't even know how much you're still
thinking,
sitting in turmoil over something that they're like, oh no, she forgave me. We've moved on.
Yeah.
It's like, have we?
But then some are, and that he mentioned this too, this is what you just said reminded me, some would never be able to repay. Mm-hmm. They would never be able to earn the trust back because it doesn't matter what they do. They do everything you tell them to do. It doesn't matter because inside you will never let it go, and you don't tell this person. So this person is gonna spend the rest of his life or her life trying to make up for something that you would never be satisfied with.
Yeah.
And that hit deep because Latinas, oh my God, Dios mío, you pay for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life.
And I know
my mom still talks about my dad to this day, and they ain't been married in over 20 years. She been married a whole different person. I mean, she been married at least 20 some years.
Yes.
And my dad, I don't see my dad often now. Every blue moon that I see him, he's like, your mother. I'm like, you ain't been married to my mother since the 90s.
And
but
still,
can't let it go.
Both of them.
They can't let it go.
And that's why my mom and your mom get along so well.
They're
like best friends, right? Okay, you mentioned the exes, and we and Christina have to walk away.
We're like, oh,
with all due respect, right?
With all due respect, we're gonna head out.
But I think he has gotten better. I think healing is definitely on the up and up. Is very different than how it was. I think as we've grown, I think we have helped them grow.
Yeah.
But right now, I look at people. I remember this girl. She had a situation with a guy that she was with, her husband, and I said to her, you either forgive him and find therapy and a way to move forward, or you let him go.
Yeah.
But you don't spend the rest of your life mistreated him and him paying for something that he already said sorry for. He already tried to show you something. Like, you got to figure this out.
But love them or leave them.
You got
to make a choice.
And you can love them and leave them too.
Yeah.
I have loved some people that I had to let go because I'm like, I knew I couldn't forgive them. I knew, and even we're not together. And I'm like, why did you do that? And yes, I was like, you have to remember, like, okay, let that go.
But you're so gracious. I love that about you. You are so gracious. You give grace even for people who don't deserve it. And I know,
according to God.
I know everybody. You're supposed to give grace to everybody, but Maylin is like a whole different caliber of grace. I'm like, wow.
Because I always think that whatever you do comes back.
Yeah.
And I think that to me, like, I sometimes pray for people that have really hurt me, that God is not so hard on them, because I'm actually concerned for them. Because I'm like, I don't know that you know who I am, and I think that just the hurt that you caused me you're going to have so much hurt because of that. So I'm like, I'd be like Jesus on the cross. Like, God, they don't even know what they're doing, because it's hard. It doesn't mean that it doesn't hurt. It doesn't mean that some days I want them to pay every single ounce of what they did to me. But then I got to come back to my goodness, right? And it's hard. It's a battle that every day you got to go through. But, point 2 is, right, kind of recapping, have the conversation.
Responsibility, repent, grace, forgiveness, and restoration.
And about therapy, guys. I think even the pastor mentioned that, like, therapy is so helpful for yourself. It's helpful for the other person, regardless if you stay with them or leave, or if the business relationship stays or goes, or the family relationship is, is damaged or not. Like, I think therapy is so important to help you move forward with the person or to help you let them go.
Yeah. Which leads into option 3, where he says, you have the conversation with the person and they reject what you're saying. Everything is about, well, that's not really what happened, and you did this, and the reason I cheated on you was because you weren't available.
Cooking. You weren't cooking.
or the reason I wasn't there because your mother was da-da-da. I'm like, so you stopped raising your children. Okay, got it, noted. So it's this whole, reject, which turns into rebellion, which then, it's, you want to still give grace, you still want to forgive, but you have to reposition.
Which means leave.
Yeah, I thought was really powerful, because it's like, if you've tried to have the conversation, they're not in a place of forgiveness. They're not in a place of acceptance. They don't want to take accountability.
They're in denial
about it. And it's more important for them to debate you and to be right than it is to be able to come to a place of grace and forgiveness. Then that's when you have to make the choice and saying, like, you know what, I tried. I'm still going to pray for you from afar. I'm still going to, wish you well, but I have to reposition. And that's me no longer being connected to you, or me no longer going to the family functions, or me no longer being able to stay in this relationship or friendship. Because if you're not willing to take, responsibility, repent in a way of asking for forgiveness. Like, if we're friends, or we're in a relationship, or you love this person, or you're doing business with this person, and they have come to you and they have said these things, and it's more important for you to be right than to you to take accountability to say, hey, maybe I need to evaluate this about myself, then you don't really care how that person feels. Yeah. And so at that point, you really don't deserve to have direct access to that individual anymore, or they don't deserve to have access to you. So kind of at the top of this, where we're talking about don't waste people's time.
Yes.
Initially I was thinking about it from a business lens, but even from a personal lens, it's like, life is what you make it. And one thing we cannot control or get back is time.
Yeah, it's the most valuable asset we have.
Absolutely. So just being mindful and respectful as to how you want to engage with folks, but also being aware that you have to be able to have the conversations, take accountability if you need to take accountability, or if it's the other way around and you're finding that others are not willing to take accountability, or not willing to show grace, or not willing to show forgiveness, then you have to make the decision as to how you want to continue to move forward with those people.
100%.
Yeah. Period. And he said so much more. So watch the sermon. Yes. We'll include the link.
Yes.
But that was just our mini interpretation of, I don't know what the sermon was even titled.
I think it's So Love Is. It's a series he's doing.
So Love Is.
Yes. And I think it's like, it doesn't keep record of wrong, something like that.
Yeah, he did say that. You can't keep records of what you've done good for others and what.
Yes.
Yeah, it was deep. It was way deeper than what we gave a surface level.
I feel like we did a summary, everybody, but I did share with. So it says, love keeps no record of wrongs is the name of the sermon. But that's misleading. You definitely need to go ahead and listen to it, because he did say, people, don't listen to this and be out here acting a fool because love, and you want to quote him about love keeps no record of wrong. That's not what he means.
Yeah,
that's a catchy title though, and very exciting for people. But you do keep record. He says, especially when he talk about certain things, you do keep record, because you want to see, is this a pattern? Is this something that I need to pay attention to now? Because it's the third time this happens.
Right.
We have talked about it. This still happens. So I think you should listen. And when you listen, let us know what you think. Because what I love about our church is not, you guys can, whatever you listen to, whatever religion you are, if you're an atheist, whatever it is, we respect you. But there's a lot of leadership skills that are shared in those sermons. There's a lot of life skills, I think, that are also shared in those sermons. And that is why I personally like them.
Yeah, me too. Well, Thank you for listening. We hope you have an opportunity to listen to the sermon in full. And as Maylin has mentioned, please feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Let us know what was your takeaway. That was kind of our takeaway. And I need to go back and listen to it again because I'm sure there's so much more that I missed in between. But in the meantime, remember, it's bigger than you.
Thank you so much for listening today. We're excited and we hope that you follow us on
Instagram, True Print for Life, YouTube channel, also True Print for Life. And make sure that you share, like, watch our videos. Make sure that you follow us on all streaming platforms.